What we've lost over recent years, in my opinion, is our identity, and we've lost a leader that has been able to reflect what supporting a team like Tranmere is all about. The battle, the hardship, the grit and the determination, not the glitz and the glamour of the Premier League, but people, let's face it, some of those players know they are playing for their careers. Some of those players, if we don't stay up, will not find another club in the league. They are desperate to stay up. And I'm sure that's what Andy Crosby said to them at half time. You know, you represent yourselves, represent the team, and if you want to see how to represent a team, that is how to do it. But yeah, the advert is brilliant. And you know, we're talking a lot about people like Wrexham at the moment and what they've done to create an identity. Well, that is a way to start painting an identity of a football club. That kind of a comeback. So I'm glad we gave them a 3-goal head start. It was clearly all in the plan. And Disney will be delighted about that when we go to them on Netflix or whoever we decide to go with, because we've got multiple options now after Amari Patrick's winner. That is a taste of what we can achieve. And I think the coverage is there, isn't it? The appetite is there. People want to go and watch football, but they want to go and watch football that they're going to be entertained. I remember taking my cousin who's an Everton supporter, and he said, at the beginning of we went to the Salford game earlier on in the season, and he said, you know what, I might start coming more with you. I might start coming to the matches. And after about 15 minutes of the Salford game, he almost had his head in his hands thinking, what is this? People want that. They want it. They want the ups and the downs. They want high scoring. They don't want a manager who's just talking about cancelling the other team out and somebody else. They want somebody who talks about being proud of who you are rather than who everybody else is. So it was a brilliant advert. Let's hope we can finish the job at the weekend and make sure that we're in this division next year.
You talk about lacking a leader, and I think that's completely right, both in terms of in the dugout and actually from an ownership point of view. I don't think we've heard enough from the owners in recent months, dare I say it, years. People might disagree with that, and some people might say they don't want to hear from them anyway, because when they do speak, they don't necessarily agree with what the Palioses have to say. But there have been times where it has been crying out for some kind of comment, be it on what's happening on the pitch or what's happening off it. And obviously, I know there are only certain things you can say with regards to the takeover, but sometimes you just want your leader to come out and say something to fill the void, even if that something is waffle. But it's the leader on the pitch that has been really missing, I think, in terms of a manager, because Tranmere fans really do latch on to a manager who speaks in the way that they want them to speak. Think of Mickey. Think of Ronnie. Ronnie just got it, didn't he? And of course he was going to get it. He played for the club. He's from the area. He's going to understand what this fan base demands. And then Mickey managed to completely buy into it. I think Mickey was a very media-savvy manager. Look, you know Mickey very well as well, given that you've written a book with him. And I think a lot of the time in his post-match interviews, Mickey said things that he either didn't necessarily agree with, or he said purely on the basis of appeasing a fan base, which is fine, because that's what a manager needs to do. They need to show leadership that bonds together the club and the fans. And they've been completely lacking that, Tranmere, since Mickey went. Nigel Adkins, as you say, he was always talking about what we can do because the opposition is such a good team. And it was all, I'm a Tranmere fan, I know what's going on. But then the words that would come out of his mouth wouldn't necessarily reflect what the fans were thinking whatsoever. Whereas since Andy Crosby's come in, that's completely changed on its head. And he is media savvy. He gets it, or he seems to get it. He certainly says the right things. And it's only been a short period. It's only been 2 months, if that. But in a very short space of time, he's gone from someone who I reckon most of the fan base would have happily seen left after the Accrington game to the majority of them now will actually want him to be here next season.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I think with a leadership structure, when you've got an owner and a manager, the manager has to speak in a way that the owner accepts when it's an ownership like Tranmere, where the owner is so invested in the team in terms of his day-to-day life, in terms of what he sees should be said and what should happen. You have to be aligned with that. You have to, because you've got to work with what's around you as a manager. I know from I'd often say to Mickey, I was actually surprised how little control sometimes managers have. Because I used to lead a school and I led a business, and the ability that you've got to make decisions is quite. You can make most decisions. There's not much kind of day-to-day involvement in it. But as a manager, sometimes you don't get that choice. You don't get the choice of necessarily getting the budget that you want or the players that you want. So you've got to come out and paint some kind of a picture to the supporters who are ultimately judging you on the decisions that you're not necessarily making. So I think that what Andy Crosby's managed to do with the restraints that he's got in terms of the squad that he's taken over is quite incredible. What he did at the beginning is he was honest. He didn't sugarcoat things. He spoke like an adult in the real world. Um, Not that Nigel Aikens isn't an adult, but sometimes, it's all very well that. I mean, I put a tweet out a while ago about for Nigel or and for Mark next season they'll be fine. Their mental health will be fine. They will probably be in a mansion in the Isle of Man, or they'll be sat in an ice bath somewhere, getting themselves on an even keel and a mental. And that's I'm not being disparaging about that. That's absolutely fine. But what you have to recognise in the supporters is that we'll be going to. I don't even know who's down there now. Where will we be going? We can't even say Bromley because Bromley are up here, or Guiseley because I think they've gone out of the league. But we'll be going to places that will be that we know we've got a good chance of losing and spending a lot of money to get there. And it's depressing. I remember going to watch Tranmere play Halifax at home, thinking, "How has this happened when we're in the National League? How has this happened? How are we struggling to beat Halifax in this division?" So I think having somebody on the pitch who's first of all got the players together, who said, right, I'm going to get this group united. I'm going to believe in players. I'm going to give them an opportunity. I'm going to be on the front foot, has made such a difference. And he's done a wonderful job. He has done an incredible job.